will make America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show.
Well, good evening, everyone. And, of course, welcome back. Yes, my friends, it's time for another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. I hope everybody here is having a great day. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are in Northern Ireland, I hope you're staying safe. And frankly, if you're in any sort of urban environment, I hope that you are also strapped, locked, and loaded, because there is a lot of crazy people out there having some really hot takes on the internet after the conviction of Carmelo Anthony yesterday. It's really unfortunate, you know. Some people are doing their damnedest to reinforce the absolute worst stereotypes, and quite frankly, it looks like they are gearing up to set off a race war, if I had to put a fine point on it. It's kind of what it looks like. You know, it's almost like if you're young and black, you just can't get away with a murder nowadays. It's just the way it should be. Nobody should be able to get away with murder. And of course, every situation, every circumstance is unique, it's individual, and the merits of every single case must be weighed upon the facts under which they are formed. I see people equivocating cases that have nothing in common on the internet. Twitter is a hot mess. All right, so do me a favor, guys. If you haven't yet, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn. Hit that like button, because we're about to get into it right about now. Recently, the U.S. Department of Energy announced $2.7 billion in contracts to restore domestic uranium enrichment capabilities. So here's the reality. The U.S. consumes over 50 million pounds of uranium every single year, but we produce less than 1 million pounds domestically. That leaves America 98% dependent on foreign suppliers for our supply. It's a critical vulnerability for national security, power generation, and advanced weapons systems. With Russia controlling much of the global enrichment capacity and escalating tensions in Iran threatening nuclear supply, the stakes could not be higher, which is why the White House has made it crystal clear. America must develop its own supply chain. And this is where Kirkstone Metals comes in. They trade under KSM in Canada and KSMCF in the US. They've got decades of uranium and junior mining expertise, and Kirkstone's leadership team knows how to turn exploration projects into real value. But the question is, can they do it again? Kirkstone controls two 100% owned uranium projects strategically located in the Athabasca Basin. This is the richest uranium district on the planet. And at their flagship Key Lake project, drilling has already hit high-grade uranium right near the surface, but the team truly believes the real prize lies deep underground. So using a playbook based on the decade's biggest discoveries, they're hunting the massive source below. So let's talk about the Athabasca Basin. It's home to multi-billion-dollar names like NextGen Energy and Denison Mines. The Athabasca Basin has delivered over 20% of the world's uranium discoveries, with an estimated $200 to $300 billion worth of uranium identified in the ground, and yet Kirkstone is still sitting at a market cap below $12 million. That's an enormous disconnect between what's found in this district and how some companies are valued today. On January 14th, the U.S. administration reinforced their commitment to domestic energy security, invoking Section 232 via an executive order. It's a formal declaration of resource independence. It's a mandate. Energy security is now national security. and the U.S. government is deploying its full fiscal and regulatory tools to secure the nuclear fuel cycle in North America. Kirkstone Metals is strategically positioned to capitalize on this shift. Now, uranium prices have surged, and some analysts project prices could exceed $100 per pound by 2026 as demand outpaces supply. Federal momentum has already begun to translate into dollars on the ground, including billions in planned funding for domestic uranium enrichment capacity. The sector is entering one of its most active drilling seasons in years, and with its flagship drill program approved, Kirkstone has exploration underway, and they're advancing with a focus on execution. Some companies operating in the district are valued at over $10 billion, and with the U.S. pushing for domestic uranium, Kirkstone could potentially become a leading beneficiary of the reshoring mandate. So if you want to learn more about this critical mineral story and about a team that has delivered big results in the past, check out the link in the description. And a very special thanks to Kirkstone Metals for making today's video possible. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us. Let me go ahead and get this set up. I need to say thank you so much, first of all, to Darla. Thank you for the can. She says, happy hump day, Zach and Lisa, and chatters. Good to see you. Let's go. Here we come. 123 SKG, thank you for the cookie. All right, first of all, we're going to check in once again with Belfast in Northern Ireland for the second day in a row. Riots have been plaguing this region, and the same stuff we were talking about yesterday continues today. This is a couple of deep looks at what happened yesterday. There were literally hundreds of demonstrators taking over the streets. Now, one cautionary tale that I saw in the chat yesterday was that people were suggesting, and people from Northern Ireland were suggesting, be on the lookout for feds. That is undoubtedly true. There are definitely going to be people in the crowd, most likely working for the Crown. However, those people in the crowd working for the Crown are most likely not going to be engaging in the burning down of migrant homes. Those people are true Irish patriots, in my opinion. And these protests continued late into the night last night. Police deployed all over with armored vehicles. Crowds were doing their best to keep them at bay. It's interesting because you see all of these young men wearing all black. And when you see that here in the United States, it's Antifa. It's not Antifa over there in Northern Ireland. It's a very different set of circumstances. This is the same type of tactic that they used during the Troubles when Catholics and Protestants were fighting against each other. In this instance, these guys have their OPSEC pretty on point. There are no pictures or videos of people's faces getting out. They're doing everything they can to protect the people who are protesting, and this is really all about things coming to a head. Now, we do have a little bit more information about the man who was nearly beheaded by that Sudanese refugee. He is not dead. He is recovering. However, his injuries are horrific. He's got injuries all over his face. He is quite literally sliced and diced. He's only in his 40s, but I couldn't have told you that. I mean, he looked to me like maybe he was in his 60s, but I don't know if you guys went and watched the video footage. I'm not going to show it here. It's pretty disturbing, but the circumstances surrounding how he got attacked by this Sudanese national is absolutely incredible. I mean, this guy was only recently admitted to the United Kingdom as a refugee and asylum seeker, and he quite literally had moved in next door to this this native Irishman. And that guy, the native Irishman, had actually helped him move into his house. There was no indication that there was anything wrong, that there was any animosity or anything. But I can tell you that the area from which this guy comes, it is literally populated by Islamic beheaders. Okay, this is the perfect type of behavior that you would expect to see from someone coming from this region of the world. He only just got here in 2023, and he was granted asylum by the government of the UK. Now, the assistant police chief, constable chief in this area said, I understand that last night's attempted murder will leave people feeling a range of emotions from fear to anger, and I appeal for calm and the safety of our communities in response to this. That obviously did not turn out that way, because here we have some additional scenes of cars being burned. Now, what they're doing is they're actually setting up roadblocks. The Irish Patriots are setting up roadblocks, and they are stopping cars that may have migrants in them. And it looks like they are getting directly into skirmishes with some of those migrants, and some of those migrants are actually being taken from their cars, and their cars are being set on fire. This is not simply an indiscriminate set of vandalisms taking place. Unfortunately, this is the gentleman, Stephen Ogilvie, who is currently in serious condition. Now, I don't know at what point this photograph was taken after he was assaulted and nearly murdered, but you can see here the horrific damage that was done to him. I mean, I can't tell you how many times he was stabbed, how many times he was sliced, but his face, his head is very swollen. In this image, you've got some of those areas that were sliced open, closed with staples and sutures. But by and large, obviously, they have a lot of work to do from what we're seeing here. This is a savage and unnecessary attack. He has injuries across, well, he's lost his left eye, but he's got severe damage to his right eye. So quite likely that this man is going to be blind at the end of it. He's also got lacerations all over his back. Now, police say that he suffered these significant injuries, and they are kind of shocked that he's alive. So the man who did this, the Sudanese national, he's 30 years old. His name is Hadi Al-Odid. He's been charged with attempted murder, possession of an article with a blade or a point in a public place, and making threats to kill. He appeared at Langenside Magistrates Court yesterday, or excuse me, well, that would be Wednesday in the UK, much earlier. And he was now remanded to custody. I don't think he's going to be getting out on bail or anything like that. But I thought it was important to let you guys know that this gentleman is alive, and it's horrible stuff. Here actually is a picture of him before he was attacked, and let me just go to the beginning. You've got a picture of the attacker on the bottom, and then the man who was attacked up top here.
Yes, the two of them, that wee lad has been living there, that young man, well, he's 47, she said. He's been living there for about 2 years. And she said them foreigners that moved in only moved in like 4 days ago. Right. And he was doing everything to help them out when they moved in. And it's not just one. There was two of them jumped him. But the news hasn't given it out yet. The two of them moved into the flat. Wow. And one of them was the one that was arrested. The other one hasn't been mentioned anywhere in the news yet.
But he was involved in the attack, allegedly.
This is what she said.
Well, that's notable, and I certainly hope that they get that guy. But I think that right now the UK government, or the Northern Irish government, is dealing with a massive PR crisis, because the last thing they want is the countryside to be set ablaze. And of course, they don't want these migrants to be shoved out of the country and forced back to where they came from. But unfortunately for them, that seems to be what the people want.
This is why up in Rathcoole they're going ballistic, because the wee lad originally came from Rathcoole, and apparently he did everything to help them.
And do you think the authorities are trying to cover that kind of thing up, that there was a second?
The whole thing, they're trying to blanket everything that's went on today.
The lad who was attacked was actually trying to help them move in?
He was helping them for the last couple of days. Apparently he's really kind, thoughtful wee lad, kind-hearted. That's what she said. She says, Margaret, he's the type of man, he would have done anything for anybody. She says, so he has been going out of his way to help him. Now, the reports we're hearing now is his nose has been cut, his eyes out, and he's blind in the other. That he can't hear anybody, it's hard to hear him. What life has he got when he comes out of intensive care?
Oh, that poor guy. You know, this is what really worries me. So many people from European cultures, even here in the United States, they sort of err on niceties, okay? I mean, like, they will default to being helpful. They will default to being good people, whereas those that are being imported will default to trying to decapitate you in the center of the street. As unfortunate as it is, I think that people need to come to the realization that we simply can no longer assume that the people you are going to be walking by down the street or that are maybe moving into you next door are going to be just as kind-hearted as you are. You know, there is the idea of Christian charity. Well, I think that in today's world, that sort of altruistic and ever-reaching Christian charity is just not possible, because we are quite literally being surrounded by people who are looking for any opportunity to kill you or to destroy you and your life. Now, I'm going to play a clip here of a man who has called into a program. First of all, shockingly, the host of the program seems to be pushing back. Well, this is the first time I've seen this in many different instances. Usually the media all across the UK is like, we can't talk negative about the migrants. You know, they're good people. They just want to live here, or they just want to move in and just be, kind and hang out with us, here in the United Kingdom. And unfortunately, that's not the experience that most people have. So good for him for pushing back. And also, the man on the phone gives you a sense of what the people are feeling.
I am sick to death of being told that anybody who stands up and says that is far right. It is common sense and nothing more. I don't know how many people contacted this show in the first hour, but there was one voice note that stood out. And before Richard Tice, wherever you are, just pin back your logos. This was Rob.
Morning, Jez. On my way to work, that's normal. Listening to you talk about the thing that happened in Belfast last night, all the unrest. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? They're not listening. The political class are not listening. So
these are homes that the migrants were moved into that are on fire here. It's not just the homes of Irishmen that are being burned.
People who are coming over here illegally. They're rapists, terrorists. They're coming over here. It's literally like putting a wolf in a sheep field. You are giving them a target-rich environment. You haven't vetted them. You've done nothing. All you've done is dump.
Wait a second. I'm seeing multiple people saying that the picture I showed is not the correct victim, that that's a different victim in another similar type attack. Well, that's horrible. Okay. Well, then we'll just say for purposes of illustration, they appear to have very similar wounds, and they are both citizens of the United Kingdom. They have both been victimized in very similar attacks. How disgusting is it that we have two things happening at the exact same time which appear to be almost identical and perpetrated by the exact same type of suspect? Well, that's horrible.
Put them in a place where they can wreak havoc. Where they come from, guess what? There's no law. If they can do literally whatever they like. They come over here, there's lawyers, of course, taxpayer funded. They get a nice cushy home, running water, Sky TV, gym memberships, bus passes. They can literally go where they want and create havoc. And when they do, the people that foisted them upon us, guess what? They say, don't get upset. Don't do anything. Don't go out and cause unrest. Well, I'll tell you what, mate. Stop reaping, then you might not have to sow it, because this country is absolutely on the edge. They cannot take much more of people getting stabbed, raped, blown up, you name it. You foisted it upon us for the last 25, 30 years, ever since Blair said, I'm going to rub your noses in it. Well, guess what? What goes round comes round. And I think the political class have got a very, very, very big smack on the nose coming.
6 minutes past 7.
This is what happens when you push people far too hard, okay? And this is what I'm hoping we don't have happen here in America. Again, America is much bigger, but we are kind of at a moment right now because of what's happening with Carmelo Anthony, where we might see something similar to that on a limited scale. However, I think that the Trump administration would deal with that very, very differently. Carmelo Anthony does not have the type of suicidal altruism that people were showing for George Floyd. That whole thing was a psyop. But you know what? I actually saw I'm going to play you guys a video, an alternate timeline. What could have happened if George Floyd had lived? Oh, no. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, hang on. I got to find it. Anyways, first of all, I did want to announce to you guys that the Michigan Court of Appeals has just finally vacated the convictions of Joseph Morrison. Joseph Morrison was one of the men who was convicted and imprisoned for the limited role that he played in the alleged plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Now, the reason his convictions were overturned is because the whole thing was run by the FBI, by Joe Biden's FBI. Morrison was a founding member of a group called the Wolverine Watchmen. This is a group that was set up by the FBI in this plot to basically kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. The whole thing was orchestrated by the FBI. It was led by the FBI, and the men who were involved, there was only a couple of them, and then the majority of the people who were involved were actually FBI agents or confidential human sources. The ringleader, the guy who literally planned and orchestrated the entire thing, was an FBI informant. So again, I go back to what I said last week or maybe earlier this week about the FBI busts for terror attacks. The majority of them since 9/11 have been setups by the FBI. You have the FBI essentially providing people with very low IQs or people who are vulnerable and impressionable. You know, these guys, it seems like they just wanted to hang out and maybe drink some beers or go shoot some guns in the woods, but it was the FBI who pushed them to the point where they could be arrested. So the FBI was basically spying on lower and middle income class Americans and then trying to set them up with terrorism charges. So then Joe Biden could go on TV and say, look, it's white right-wing extremism. It's Christian nationalist extremism. This was all occurring at the same time that the Antifa and BLM riots were taking place. They were burning down entire cities. They were robbing and looting businesses all across the United States of America. And they didn't want to go after them because, of course, St. George Floyd, you couldn't say anything bad about George Floyd back then, or even suggest that maybe this guy who was an unrepentant drug dealer who had one time robbed a pregnant woman and held a pistol at her baby's belly inside of her, that was, you know, something you just basically couldn't do. So in October of 2020, the FBI announced they had thwarted this plot to kidnap and kill Governor Gretchen Whitmer. They arrested more than a dozen individuals associated with a variety of different groups, but they never at that time said that they were the ones who actually plotted and planned and encouraged a very small group of Michigan men to attend this field training exercise, a couple of militia meetings, all of them at during the course of this, they were being basically watched and surveilled and set up by the FBI. Now, they were also at the same time had a network of FBI informants that manipulated these people into talking about incendiary things while they were secretly being recorded. Never was there a true plan by these people to go kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. It's very similar to what they did with PatCon during the 80s and the 90s. I mean, that's what led to the Murrah building bombing with Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols, also of Michigan. So anyways, these charges were always contentious. It happened in the midst, the backdrop of the election. Of course, we know that there was systemic voter fraud then, just as there is systemic voter fraud now. And this gave the FBI the ability to sort of add a little bit of juice to Joe Biden's campaign. So the FBI has never admitted that they wanted the plot to be this multi-state effort with various militia groups, but they did get caught doing all of these things. And once it came out that the women that were involved and all of these other people were federal agent provocateurs, it never really worked out in the way that they did. Essentially, the FBI was planning something that you would expect to see in a third world country, a former Soviet bloc nation. So anyways, this guy has had his convictions overturned, and that's a really, really wonderful thing. Now, before I play for you this before I get into the Carmelo Anthony subject, and I need to find this video real quick because this was so good. I thought I added a bookmark for it, but I don't see it in my bookmarks. Unless he deleted it. Oh my gosh, he might have deleted it. No, here it is. Okay. All right, so this is what the left would have you believe about George Floyd and probably now about Carmelo Anthony. That Carmelo Anthony's just a good boy. All he did was stab another kid once in the chest. He didn't mean to kill him. He just happened to kill him. And, of course, you can't blame somebody when they don't mean to do something. But everybody knows that's ridiculous. But what could have happened if George Floyd had lived? Think about the amazing things he might have done.
What if George Floyd lived? He could have saved lives, reached beyond the world he knew, changed the system from the inside. And he was only getting started. He could have led a nation, inspired the world, became a symbol of hope. The timeline we never got.
What if George Floyd lived? Well, he didn't, but the one thing I am certain of is that he never would have done any of those things. All right, so yesterday we were waiting to see exactly what Carmelo was going to get for his sentence. So he's been sentenced to 35 years in prison because he was a minor. The extent of his prison sentence, if convicted of murder, could have been as little as 5 years up to 99 years. Now, it seems like the majority of Carmelo's supporters are not only upset that he was convicted of murder first, but that he was given a sentence of 35 years. What none of them seem to grasp is that Carmelo Anthony will be eligible for parole at half of that sentence. So at approximately 17 and a half years into his sentence, Carmelo Anthony might get out on parole, and he might be a free man, and he'll still be a young man. But the one thing that will be true in that scenario is that Austin Metcalf will still be dead, and his family will still be tortured by that death. His brother will still remember Austin bleeding out in his arms. Carmelo's family and supporters will still have tormented the family of Austin Metcalf probably the entire time that Austin will be that Carmelo will be behind bars. So he is 19 years old. He's going to be in prison for at least the next 17 and a half years. And the one thing also that I seem to continue picking up on from the people who support Carmelo is that they have zero understanding of the fundamentals of the case. They see a black kid and a white kid. They see the murder, but the murder means nothing because it was committed by a black kid. And they seem to think that no matter what happened, Carmelo was justified in taking Austin's life, even if he didn't mean to do it. It's okay because they think Austin jumped Carmelo because people were saying that. There was a guy who came out at the start of the trial and said that he was a teacher at the school, and he saw the video. And he said in the video, you see Austin and his brother and all of their friends surrounding Carmelo, and then they just start beating him. That never happened. That was a complete fabrication. I haven't seen anybody who had posted that and suggested that it was real come out and say that this guy is a liar. Ray Carr, you did hear me correctly. Carmelo Anthony was sentenced to 35 years in prison. He could have gotten as little as 5. He could have gotten as many as 99. But he was sentenced to 35 years, and he will be eligible parole when he has served 50% of that sentence. Now, Austin Metcalf's father had the opportunity to give a speech when Carmelo was being sentenced. And this is what he said. He said, "We were robbed." And then speaking to Carmelo, he said, "Don't look down." Of all of these things, because Carmelo refused to look him in the eyes. I think he looked at him for maybe a moment. "I said from day one that this was never about race. Please don't politicize it. But what did you choose to do? Both." He's addressing Carmelo's family and his supporters. "It's about right and wrong. We're all humans. We all bleed the same color. You're free to make choices all you want, but you're not free from the consequences of those choices. You will face those consequences starting today. People think that grief is sadness, but it's not. It's rage." And then he slammed his hands on the table. "Pure, unfiltered rage," he shouted out in the courtroom. You failed your parents, you failed yourself, and you failed society. You do not belong in this community. You're going to prison. You can't even look me in the eyes right now, but you can stab my fucking son in the heart. Carmelo Anthony is a coward. And there's also a lot of AI videos that you're probably going to see out there on the internet, which show Carmelo's first days in prison, and they're actually kind of funny. All right. Now, outside of the courthouse yesterday, what you saw there, all of the supporters of Carmelo Anthony, a good portion of them were from a faction of the Black Panthers Party. They are pretty much actively advocating for a race war at this point. One of them shouted, "We got to tell our kids the truth, that this is a racist-ass country. We got to tell them the truth. Don't nobody want to hear about what we do to each other. We talking about what they doing to us. White folks kill white folks. Mexicans kill Mexicans. We ain't trying to hear no cool shit today. Go open them white folks with that. This is a racist-ass country," she said. Now, of course, there's a lot of crimes committed by a lot of people. But when you look at the numbers, you are overwhelmingly more likely to be murdered or to be victimized in a criminal sense by a black person in America. That's simply the way that it is. And that goes for black people and white people. Okay? It's not like black people only attack white people. This is a fundamental and undeniable fact. And I think that it has a lot to do with the animosity that many in the black community have against white people because they've been taught to hate them from birth. And the irony is that most white people are taught to just be colorblind, to just ignore all of this stuff. But there is a massive chasm between us in terms of our ethics and morals and behavior patterns. And you see the way that the Carmelo Anthony supporters are behaving. And I think most people would say, I would never act like that. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Now, the one piece of good news that I have out of this portion of the story is that GiveSendGo has deactivated Carmelo Anthony's donation account, which means that the 1.3 million or so that they had raised, they're not going to get. So I had been told that they had started withdrawing money from this at some point in the past, and maybe they had multiple GiveSendGo fundraising campaigns that they had set up. I know that there was money that they had received, and maybe they were funded by 501c3s or wealthy donors or something like that. But the 1.3 million that GiveSendGo had raised over the course of the last 2 years, that will not be going to the Anthony family. That will be given back to every single person who had given that money. Now, GiveSendGo, virtually as soon as Carmelo was convicted, not immediately. They waited a couple of hours. It might have even been early this morning that they deactivated it. But they put this statement out, and they said, "A jury has found Carmelo Anthony guilty in the death of Austin Metcalf. Our hearts are with Austin's family, his twin brother, and everyone grieving a loss that no verdict can undo. GiveSendGo hosted a fundraiser connected to this case. Hosting a fundraiser has never been an endorsement of a person, their actions, their legal arguments, or their public statements. It's not a declaration of innocence. It's not a political statement. It is access to lawful fundraising, which we extend across the full spectrum of cases." And this is the reason that I actually like GiveSendGo, because they supported a lot of people on the right after we had been canceled from virtually every other source of fundraising. You know, back when I got demonetized on YouTube, they took my Cash App, they took my PayPal. They literally took every source of funding and my ability to fundraise that I had in any sense, Patreon as well. And any of the platforms that I was allowed to be on, there was no monetization, or I was unable to monetize. And so it was not easy for a long time. And it's still not easy today, because when you don't have access to those mainstream fundraising platforms, it makes it very difficult to be able to, support yourself as you typically would when you're a podcaster or you're doing things online. But Give, Send, Go has always had a policy of allowing, everybody to set up a lawful fundraiser as long as you adhere to the laws and the rules and all of that. But now they've done the right thing in taking this fundraising down. The fundraiser was created to support pretrial needs, and those funds were dispersed over the past year for lawful purposes, including legal defense and family relocation. Okay, I guess I was correct. With that stated purpose now complete, the fundraiser has been closed. Our policy is that a fundraiser stated purpose stays accurate, so givers always know what they are supporting. Our prayer is for Austin Metcalf's family, for those affected, and for justice, mercy, and peace in our community. And then they end with a Bible verse, Micah 6:8. He has told you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? Now, here is a post from Sarah Fields. Sarah is, if you don't know, Sarah is censored. She's a journalist on Twitter. Why is this getting dark on me? Sarah is a journalist on Twitter, and she has been involved advocating for the Metcalf family and reporting honestly on Carmelo Anthony's crime since it happened. She's local there in Texas. And she's also taken a lot of heat. She has been directly affected by her reporting because the supporters of Carmelo Anthony have come after Sarah. They've doxed her and her family. They have threatened her children, her family, and at least one of those people has been prosecuted, and I believe they are in prison right now for just being totally stupid and retarded. They actually were warned, like Sarah got a restraining order against this guy, and he still came after her, and he still came after her kids, and so she pressed charges as she should have, and then that guy ended up going to prison. So this kind of gives you an inside look of what happened in the courtroom, because she was there every single day, and obviously they didn't allow cameras, so the only reporting you can get is from people in the room. She said directly after the verdict, the majority of Carmelo Anthony's supporters left the courtroom before we even took a break for sentencing, including Tiffany Billions, who is this loudmouth broad who supports Carmelo Anthony. It's strange that people who call themselves advocates would abandon Carmelo at that very moment that he was being told he was going to prison. I thought that was strange myself. During sentencing and the victim impact statements, Carmelo Anthony's parents were also absent from the courtroom. Carmelo Anthony's parents didn't care about the victim impact statements. The only thing they cared about is that their son was going to have to pay for what he did. When Hunter asked Carmelo to look him in the eyes, Hunter is Austin's twin brother, during his impact statement, Carmelo looked up for a few seconds, and then he looked back down for the remainder of the heartbreaking statement. These people seem completely devoid of any sense of decency. They don't care about accountability. They're angry that a man is facing consequences for his actions, and even then, no sentence will ever be enough. Nothing can bring Austin back. Yeah, I am shocked that they completely left before that. Now, here is Carmelo Anthony's mother and father as they leave the courthouse. And I believe that his grandmother is in this group as well. And they're just trying to rile the crowd up. They're saying racism, bias, racist courthouse.
I just came out. If they do a press conference, they better not hear shit with Velo Strong. If they do a press conference, I don't want to hear nothing with Velo Strong. If they do a press conference,
is this the family? That's the mama. Okay, we got mom right there on the left in the middle being escorted down. Justice for Carmelo!
Justice for Carmelo! Justice for Carmelo! Justice for Carmelo!
Carmelo got justice. Carmelo got exactly what he deserved. And I agree with Sarah. No sentence will ever be enough. Because at the end of the day, Austin is dead. His family is forever affected, saddled with the burden of the knowledge of what happened to him and the knowing that they'll never be able to see their son, their brother, ever again. Never wake up in the morning and see him coming down for breakfast. Never have the pleasure of going and waking him up when his alarm clock doesn't go off. never being able to hug him and congratulate him when he has a game that he wins or when he gets an A on his report card, never being able to watch him, get a job and start living his life and develop a family of his own. Those are the things that I think about. I think about loss. I think about, the tragedy of this situation. Carmelo, as I said, in 17 and a half years, he might get out of prison. And I guarantee he will have some fanboy groupies who are going to rally around him. He'll get to do all of those things that Austin will never get to do. But Austin's family, they only have each other.
Justice for Carmelo! Justice for Carmelo! Hey, we got y'all. That's the family right there. Uh-oh. Justice for Carmelo! For Carmelo!
Now, Carmelo's lawyers have already filed an appeal on his behalf. The family has already started another fundraising campaign. And of course, as I said yesterday, they have a multi-million-dollar home that I don't believe they own, that they're just renting, that of course they want to stay in. So the grift is going to continue. Mark my words.
Justice for Carmelo! Justice for Carmelo! Justice for Carmelo! Justice for Carmelo!
No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace!
Hey, nothing but love, brother. Nothing but love, brother. Nothing but love, brother.
I also find it kind of disturbing and inappropriate that they keep throwing up the heart sign, considering how Austin died.
Nothing but love, brother. It's the Melo family right there. They finna get ready to go. Hey, Morty, get your pussy ass on.
I believe that's Carmelo's grandmother right here. So she's chanting racist, biased over and over again. There's nothing racist about the sentence. It's like they believe that it's permissible. They believe that because Carmelo is black and Austin is white, that whatever he did to him is completely forgiven. 400 years, guys, 400 years of blood, sweat, and tears. That makes up for whatever it is that Carmelo might do or that any person of this community might do. And just to show you, up in Jacksonville, this happened earlier today or maybe late yesterday, a random black guy who is some kind of online influencer who has a very unique set of vocabulary and phrases that he uses. He calls himself a digital creator. He was live streaming on Instagram yesterday, and he rolled up on this random white guy who's sitting at a park, it looks like, and he punches him in the head. And he basically, he cops to selecting this man for this action because the guy's white. And he says something like, this guy served on the Carmelo Anthony jury. What? Like this is in like Jacksonville, Florida. Like there's no way. He wasn't on the Carmelo Anthony jury. So this guy goes by the name Comeback Kid Bo, and comeback is spelled Combak. Kid Bo is Kidboe. I'm sorry, he was on Facebook, not Instagram. So he's driving on his bike like Debo in Friday, and he's looking for a white person to get revenge on. So he sees this middle-aged guy sitting on the ground. He wasn't doing anything. He didn't basically the guy watches him riding his bike up to him, and he has no reason to think that he's about to get attacked. Okay, it's just like that inbred pathological nicety that you see amongst many people. No reason. Why would this guy come up and attack him? No reason to think that that's going to happen. So this guy comes up and he punches him in the face. And the guy's like, what are you doing? What? And he like gets up and he tries to get away, and a woman is with them. And I'm just going to play you the video so you can see it, because it's obvious what's happening. So if you want to, I don't know why you would, but you can follow this guy. Now, he writes on this video, I don't understand what this means. And that's why I said he's got a unique vocabulary and ability to spell. Down to 4, the number 4 cracker, nah, free Carmelo. Okay, so obviously that looks like cracker must be a white person. Nah, free Carmelo. Okay, I get that too. But comeback kid Bo, I am worried about my past. Focus on living it up.
Hey, weren't you on jury selection?
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. Seriously. No, he wasn't. He wasn't.
He was on jury selection.
He's a vet, dude. He's a vet. He's a vet. He ain't been on jury selection.
I ain't worried about that.
Fuck you.
You gonna die.
Quit, dude.
You on jury? Weren't you on jury selection?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't.
You on jury selection?
He wasn't.
You was on jury selection?
No, he wasn't.
No,
he wasn't.
Oh.
No, he wasn't.
Not for Anthony, not for Carmelo Anthony. Oh. All right, my beat. I thought you was on jurisdiction for
No, apologize to him, dude.
my beat. Man, what?
Anyways, this guy is a moron, and I'm seeing just so much of this happening in so many different ways. Here, outside of the courthouse, a supporter of Carmelo Anthony essentially says that Hunter, Austin's twin brother, should be dead as well. Now, this is after the jury had come to the conclusion that Carmelo had, in fact, committed murder. And Nick Sorter was there getting the videos. And here, she says that Carmelo should have killed Hunter as well.
They should have both been arrested.
They should both should have been dead. The brothers, both brothers. Both of them should have been dead. You ask me? Don't record me. I ain't asked you not to record me. Don't like I said.
They both should have been dead, she says. Why? Why? Because he wasn't supposed to be there, and Carmelo touched him. Excuse me, Austin touched him. Now, there are too many videos of black people supporting Carmelo, calling for the unrestrained murder of white people all over the internet. I'm only going to play one for you, all right? Because I don't think I need to play any more than this, but this is not an unusual video to see on the internet today.
Ain't no fucking judicial justice for black people. How many motherfucking decades and decades have to go by where you don't receive that? Your justice is fucking frontier justice. They kill one of y'all, you kill one of them. Our toughest soldiers ain't gonna do shit. I'm talking to you. You ain't gonna do shit but kill up on your own.
Others are far more explicit. Just people suggesting that they're looking for a reason to be tested so that they can go out and kill somebody. Now, Jasmine Crockett did some type of a podcast last night, gave her response to the verdict. She also gave an interview to TMZ DC, which was just as retarded. But here, she suggests that black women, just by virtue of the fact that they are black women in America, go through more pain than the Metcalfs have ever gone through.
Black women especially Black women who have Black male children, live in fear and agony every single day. A fear and agony that I promise you, the Metcalfs probably never spent a day living that way. And we're going to have just some real conversations about race in this country.
There's definitely some real conversations about race that are going on right now, but I don't think that it's the type of conversation that she's talking about. Now, here, she's on camera with all of these people, and she minimizes and justifies the action of killing Austin Metcalf.
The bleachers after. And it only took one stab. I think everybody needs to understand it was not like it was multiple times.
So these are the facts that really should have been
honed in on.
Correct. Yeah. Because those are the ways that you look at intent, right? Like
the bleachers after.
It was just one stab. It was just one stab. Well, one stab to the heart is all that it takes to take somebody's life. If it had been Austin Metcalf, one stab to Carmelo Anthony's heart, having killed him, it still would have been murder. All right. It is not because of the fact that Carmelo Anthony is a Black kid. Now, here in this video, she says that the knife that was used to kill Austin Metcalf was not a deadly weapon because of the length of it. But again, it's a knife that was long enough to pierce his chest, to open up his heart, and to have him bleed out very quickly.
Awful.
Wait a minute, was it a switch? I don't know what he had.
It was like it seemed.
And of course, she also admits her ignorance. She doesn't know the circumstances of the crime or the evidence that led to the conviction of Carmelo Anthony. If she did, I don't think that it would have made a difference because she's still stupid.
Like it was a multi-tool, almost like a Swiss Army.
Like with like with the little scissors and everything and whatever. So it was small. Well, I would argue the size of it alone, you wouldn't even think it's a deadly weapon.
And that's
forgot he had the bag.
If it was one of the little, like I don't know, like I do think.
Well, that's why he went to his coach and was like, but I don't think I hurt him that bad. Awful force.
No, he knew he killed him. He knew right off the bat he killed him. All of this whataboutisms, these things, these reasons that they're trying to retroactively come up with to absolve Carmelo Anthony, they were definitely addressed during the trial. Okay? Now, what counts is the evidence, and the evidence was presented. I really do wish that the judge had allowed cameras to be shown in this trial because I think that it would have been important to have all of that memorialized. Now, here she explains that likely, given the circumstances, she too would have stabbed Austin Metcalf. So Jasmine Crockett is not only okay with murder, she would have likely been someone who would have committed that same murder.
If a 300-pound man is...
And first of all, he wasn't a 300-pound man. Okay, he was a 16-year-old boy. Sure, he was a little bit bigger than Carmelo, but there was no aggression in the same way that Carmelo was exhibiting aggression.
Beating me, like on top of me and beating me down.
And there also was no beating. I keep seeing the supporters repeat this over and over again, that Austin was beating Carmelo. Austin had a whip and he was using racial epithets. Nothing like that happened.
I'm not limited to fist. You know, I would argue that even the only time we go into things like people's hands being considered deadly weapons is typically like if they're a professional boxer or that kind of stuff. But I think by the time you start getting to like football player, good argument. Good freaking argument. We're not talking about like the golfers. We're talking about football players, right? Like this is what they are trained to do, is to inflict like serious physical contact. And it's my understanding that the decedent was that
yeah, that's just not what happened. The only person seeking to inflict deadly physical contact was Carmelo Anthony, which is why he's the one going to prison. Now, yesterday, prior to the verdict being read, Jasmine Crockett was in Congress for a hearing of the Judiciary Committee. This was during that same series of questions for the Southern Poverty Law Center and regarding their funding of extremist groups and weaponizing those groups so that they could allegedly increase their donations. Now, Jasmine Crockett had the opportunity to have an interaction with Dr. Alveda King. If you don't know, Dr. Alveda King is the niece of Martin Luther King Jr., and she is pretty based. She's awesome. And she actually made the claim that Dr. Alveda King is not fit to represent the ideas of Dr. Martin Luther King. She went on this rant and she said, white men are lecturing people of color because the vast majority, actually, any semblance of diversity comes from this side of the aisle. You want to tell people of color who is fighting for who? People of color do not feel comfortable or welcomed within your party. She's referring to the Republican Party, but she's obviously incorrect. And then she continued, referencing Alveda. That's why you have to parade someone who has the name Dr. King attached to them so that people can be confused, because I've been reading the comments online and people are like, who is this Dr. King? Because you want them to believe that somehow she espouses who Dr. King was. And after attacking Alveda, claiming she doesn't understand the teachings of Dr. King, which is hilarious, Jasmine went on to attack Charlie Kirk. And, of course, because Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA were on the hate list that the SPLC had put together. She is just an ignorant person. And I'm so glad that she's going to be gone. Now, there's another case in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, where a young white boy, college student, had his phone stolen by a couple of younger black kids. I don't think that they were quite college age, but they were right around the same age. And they stole his phone, and he was trying to get his phone back from him. And rather than give his phone back, the two black kids shot and killed this young man. And I wonder if we're going to have the similar circumstance where the community rallies around these kids and says, well, you know, they didn't mean to kill him, and it really wasn't murder because he was trying to come after them for something that they had already stolen. Anyways, Billy Schmidt is the young man in question, and Philadelphia is obviously not a safe place to be. But the family of Billy Schmidt is speaking about the impact of what happened to him. And, of course, it's just as senseless a killing as the killing of... Oh, no, hold on. I forgot to turn on the cooler on my camera, and it looks like it's getting really hot. Oh, shoot. Hopefully this is going to be able to take care of it, because otherwise my camera is going to shut off. Dang it. Okay, here is the video.
You got to clean the city up to stop the violence. I mean, this can't happen every day.
They deserve to spend the rest of their lives in jail for taking away my brother. And I don't think no one will ever understand this pain that they have caused. They are animals for doing that to him. He was unarmed. And all this for a phone. It just doesn't even make sense.
You could feel her heartbreak there. So Billy's father says his son left a neighborhood bar on Saturday and was only 50 feet from their home when he was approached by two men who stole Billy's phone. Surveillance videos from neighbors captured the verbal confrontation. You can see two hooded suspects pacing on the sidewalk. Billy can be heard demanding for the suspects to return the phone, and then he chases after them. Another surveillance video shows a different angle. You can see there a suspect in a black hoodie pointing a gun. We've frozen the clip the moment the gun was fired. The district attorney's office says officers have recovered a spent shell casing and continue to canvass the area. Billy's father says he found his son's phone shortly after the shooting, and now investigators are looking into whether it could hold a key piece of evidence.
They have a print on the phone, but they don't know if it's mine, Billy's, or the person who threw it. But they're trying to get DNA off the phone, and they took video cams from a lot of neighbors.
Billy was a senior studying digital journalism and media at Penn State. The city of Philadelphia is offering a $20,000 reward for any information that leads to an arrest and conviction. A vigil in Billy's honor is scheduled for tomorrow.
Wow. Again, completely senseless. They steal his phone. All he wants is to get his phone back. He's not fighting them. He's not even really particularly aggressive when he's asking for it back. And rather than allowing him to take his phone back, they kill him, and then they ditch his phone someplace else. Oh, good Lord. All right. Before we continue, I have a brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. As you guys know, America is about to hit a major milestone. Our 250th birthday is this year. 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-governance the world has ever known. This is truly a great time to teach your kids or your grandkids about why America matters, why the ideas behind this country are worth protecting and carrying on. And there's a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday, which is a great way to do just that. It's going to teach them who the founding fathers were, show them what it was that they risked at the time they signed the Declaration of Independence, and this is going to take them back to that very moment. It's not going to water it down. It's not going to make it feel like boring schoolwork. It's going to be something that they truly will be interested in. So if you care about raising kids who know where this country came from and why it's worth preserving, you should definitely grab this. You can use that QR code on screen. The best part is it's completely free. All you do is pay $2 for shipping and handling. To pick one up, you can also go to freeusabirthday.com. That's freeusabirthday.com. And right there, the Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday is available for them right now because America's story matters. Let's make sure this next generation knows it. All right. A couple of thank yous from the audience. Ginger45, thank you for the can. Filter Dog says, Carmelo was on suspension for bringing that same knife to school. Yep, that is correct. So again, I think that there was a pattern of behavior. Carmelo was looking for an opportunity to use that knife. 123SKG, thank you for the cookie. All right, now, thank you to Trisha, who says, according to Gateway Pundit, the pic you showed is the man, the pseudonymized guy, attacked Belfast victim Stephen Ogilvie in the serious condition via X. So yes, that's why I referenced it. However, multiple people are saying that it's not, and it wouldn't be the first time that any news outlet had published something incorrectly. So I'm just going to err on the side of caution and say I don't know for sure. One Ohio Gal Now, thank you for the $10 rant. The money raised for the murderer is already spent on the mansion, car, and facial surgery for the mom. True. Yes. Okay. So that was also confirmed by the people at Give, Send, Go. Surtur, thank you very much. Most of the black people I know hate this ghetto attitude, too. This is only a small part of the black community doing this. That's correct. I know plenty of black people, and they're very annoyed by it, and they completely understand why people are fed up with it, the fatigue that Americans feel. And this is why I'm always careful not to say, like, all black people are like this, because they're not. I mean, you have pieces of shit who exist within every community. There are plenty of white people who are also totally shitty. There are plenty of people of all colors, religions, creeds, whatever it might be, who are terrible. But when you have people coming from certain parts of the world, it is almost certainly the vast majority of them. Jep863 says, these retards are now saying size doesn't matter and it's all on how you use it. LOL. Yeah, it's funny. Because size obviously does matter, and whether it's a knife or something else, it's definitely going to matter. Surtur says, Jasmine Crockett insulted MLK's niece in Congress, too. Yes, we just checked that out. I just didn't want to play another clip with Jasmine Crockett. Will to push forward, Zach, does it really sound like Crockett is trying to appeal to the radical types, felons and ex-felons, the lacking morally, intellectually, etc.? Her wording strongly suggests it. Well, yeah, no, I think that's exactly what she's doing. And she's appealing to what she believes is her base. And she has this persona that she's created among a certain portion of the black community. And for Jasmine Crockett, she ultimately wants to remain in some type of relevancy or authority. She's probably going to run for higher office again at some point in the future. She is a lawyer. She had initially said that she became a lawyer because she was the victim of a hate crime. That story kind of fell apart, and then she made up some other story. Now it's going to have to be what she leans on. She'll probably get a job at a 501c3 or some type of corporate gig. I doubt that she's going to be out there practicing law. Principled Enigma said, it's stunning how dangerous, stupid, and ignorant people can be. Anyone remember Sling Blade or The Prince of Tides? Yeah, absolutely do. All right, now, let's transition over to the election in California. So Nithya Raman, as soon as she was crowned the second place winner by the AP and the mainstream media, she took to Twitter to give a thank you to people who had allegedly voted for her. So her message did not go over very well. The replies were pretty vicious. I went and looked, and I found maybe one or two people who seemed to be supporters of her. I don't even know if they were eligible to vote for her. But she said, I'm incredibly honored that voters have given us the opportunity to advance to the general election for mayor of Los Angeles. To the thousands of supporters who knocked on doors, made calls, sent texts, donated, and opened their homes for events across the city, and to everyone else who made this moment possible, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, our fight for a healthier, safer, more affordable, and more joyful Los Angeles continues. For too long, City Hall has prioritized giving people political advantage to powerful interests that fund elections. Meanwhile, working people pay the price in higher rents, depleted services in a city that has stopped working for them. If you are as frustrated by the broken status quo as I am, I hope you'll join our movement to build a city that works for everyone. Didn't you concede on election night? The voters had nothing to do with it. Voters didn't give you anything. Voters put you in third place. Fraud put you in second place. No one believes you actually won. No, Nithya. Cheating the vote is how you win an honest election. You didn't even win your own city council, which was CD4. You can never tell me otherwise. And it goes on and on and on and on and on like that. People accusing her of fraud, saying you didn't actually win. You forgot to thank all the inhabitants of Skid Row who voted for you without even knowing. Now, Brock Pierce, he is a resident of Los Angeles. He's a former child actor who is now, I guess, a crypto mogul. And he starred in The Mighty Ducks. I know a lot of people have very fond memories of the film The Mighty Ducks. Anyways, he is offering $1 million as a reward for any credible, verifiable evidence of election fraud, because a lot of people are continuing to say that, you know, this obviously is a fraudulent election. He has put together something called the Cure the Vote Initiative. It's an effort to boost transparency and accountability around the mayoral race that everybody is still talking about. Now, that's Brock Pierce right there. That is him in The Mighty Ducks. Cure the Vote is designed to provide a secure and independent avenue for election workers, government employees, contractors, campaign staff, election observers, whistleblowers, and members of the public to submit credible evidence related to potential election misconduct or irregularities. Now, if you are someone who lives in Los Angeles and you were privy to fraud going on, this could be your moment. Do the right thing. Go report it, not only to Brock and his organization, but also to Bill Asaley at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Now, President Trump made this comment earlier today during a larger conversation. He did make a couple of comments about the election in California. But here he is talking in a larger sense about election fraud all across this country.
Now they made it so that I wouldn't be president, and because they rigged the election, the second election, as you probably hear and probably know, most of you know that happened, and now it's been proven, and it will be proven as time goes by even more so. We have things that you won't believe. When we release the full files, you're not going to believe how crooked the 2020 election was. But who would have thought that it comes due in my term? I mean, this was, thank you very much. So it was very important that we be able to do that. So we're talking to them. We'll see if we do something.
Okay, and that's in regards to the California election. Now, despite what President Trump says, that they have all of this evidence, everybody is waiting. Well, as we're waiting, more and more continues to come out. So a series of videos were just released in the last 24 hours, and it shows the homeless of Skid Row, which is why I made the thumbnail. They're all saying that they were paid to vote for both Karen Bass or Nithya Raman. So the footage is all recorded near 7th Street and Flower Street in downtown Los Angeles. This is from Tuesday morning. This is prime Skid Row real estate, and it's now been provided to the Department of Justice. So this is not just an internet video series. This is evidence that has been handed over to the federal government. And if it was taken on Tuesday, likely it was handed over either late Tuesday or early this morning. So it shows that, as we showed yesterday, voter turnout in Skid Row was up by 150%. We know that there's at least 43,000 homeless people who live in Los Angeles. That is more than enough to swing the turn of an election. And Nithya Raman, got about 33,000 more votes, maybe 43,000 more votes on paper than Spencer Pratt. There was one shelter in Venice where 185 Raman votes were registered. This is the one I told you about yesterday, where Nithya Raman was instrumental in getting $600,000 from the taxpayers of Los Angeles for this organization, who doesn't even have any beds or spaces available. So, of course, the obvious question is, how did 185 people vote from that location? We've got a couple of different clips that we're going to play for you. But at the end of the day, you have multiple cases where it's quite obvious that these homeless people were being given money for votes. And you can see here right now, this guy admits that he was paid to vote.
Are you a registered voter?
Yeah, I'm a registered voter.
Oh,
no, I'm not in this county. I'm in San Bernardino County, but they just said, who cares? They gave me a name to write.
They gave you a name to sign?
They gave me everything to sign. So.
Oh. They gave you a name to sign?
They gave me a whole paper of like what to write and who to sign and everything, so.
Oh, wow. Damn. You just signed off on it?
Just signed off on it to make some money,
Oh, no questions asked, huh? Are you ready?
So that right there is another example of the scheme that was exposed by Cam Higbee and James O'Keefe with O'Keefe Media Group. If you're not a resident of L.A. County, they've got a list of voters because, of course, we know that there are hundreds of thousands of voters on the California voter rolls that are inactive. So they know who's voted, who hasn't, and what names they can use. Here's another one. She was paid $5 to vote for Karen Bass.
My name is Shanika Renee Johnson. I'm from Los Angeles, California. 39 years old.
You live in Skid Row?
I live in Skid Row.
Oh, and then did they come down here and try and pay you to vote?
Yes.
On a ballot?
Yes.
Oh, how much they pay you?
$5.
Oh, and they said, here, come and vote for these candidates?
Yes, sir.
They told you who to vote for?
Yes.
Wow. So they told you to vote for Karen Bass or Nithya Raman?
Karen Bass.
Did you vote for Karen Bass?
Yeah.
For $5? Yeah. And they doing this for a lot of people?
Yes.
How often do they come down here?
Probably like 3 times a week.
3 times a week?
Yeah,
to get the ballots?
Yep.
Wow, to vote for Karen Bass?
Karen Bass or whoever else.
Nithya? Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, how long you been down here for?
I've been down here 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah.
So you've been seeing this happen all the time?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a whole business, huh?
Most definitely.
And would you call it fraud?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I would.
And call it fraud behavior?
Fraudulent behavior, yeah.
Taking advantage of the homeless community?
Yeah.
Yeah? You get votes?
That sounds bad. No. Well, you know, at the time I didn't know that was going on. I was just trying to make $5, you know?
Yeah. It's all good.
But I didn't do the fraud.
Yeah, no, you're not fraud.
Yeah, it is fraud. Most definitely fraud. Here is another instance of an elderly woman who did the same thing.
But they do a signature? They paying people to sign? I had to just sign it twice. That's it. And then you pick out what you want. Oh, you sign 2 signatures and you pick out whatever? Yeah, you got a table with stuff on it. And Louis has perfume is pretty expensive. You got good stuff. You can pick. So they give gifts to some. Yeah. Yeah, not money. Not that I know, but I haven't asked them. So go to 5th, the little store on the corner. Go in the middle of the block on the left. You see MBI, mental health, and something to do. You'll see the table right outside. You want to do that. Okay. I'm going to ask him about money. So I don't know. Yeah. But his stuff is nice. Like Louis Vuitton perfume.
So money and Louis Vuitton perfume. I believe that there is one more that was embedded in the article. Let's see. Ah, shucks. This stupid ads. All right. So, you know what? I already closed it. But here we actually have a playbook from the Democratic Socialists of America that are located in Los Angeles. And they actually have a guide instructing volunteers how to pressure homeless people to cast ballots on the spot and then hand them over for delivery. This sounds exactly like what was just described by these homeless people living on Skid Row. It's technically ballot harvesting, but if they are giving people money for their vote, that's illegal. If they are having people use names and address information that is not theirs, that, of course, is also illegal. Now, the guide is called How to Ballot Delivery, and it was first published by the LA chapter of DSA back in May of 2022. The instructions walk volunteers through a step-by-step process for collecting completed mail ballots from voters and then delivering them on their behalf. Now, the instructions include information for volunteers asking voters whether they will cast their ballot immediately, and if they hesitate, they are taught to pressure them. Will you vote now? The guide asks volunteers and says that you should ask it 3 times. Now, the document also suggests volunteers should tell voters how they can help ensure a ballot does not get lost in the mail by filling it out immediately and then handing it over for them to deliver. The suggested script says, I want to make sure that your ballot doesn't get lost in the mail or in the city bureaucracy. If we fill it out together right now, there's an official place to sign it over to me, and I can bring it to the city directly either today or first thing in the morning. Volunteers are then instructed to ensure voters place all ballot pages in the envelope before signing those required sections. Now, the guide even goes further, directing volunteers how to complete the portion of the envelope identifying the person returning the ballot. Under their relationship, they just write volunteer because that's what they are. But of course, they're certainly being paid for that by the DSA or some other left-wing 501c3 that is providing grant funding to the DSA. Once they get the ballot, volunteers either then bring the ballots to the DSA LA Canvas leaders, or they just deposit them right in a mailbox or in one of these official mail-in drop boxes. State law allows voters to designate another person to return a completed mail-in ballot on their behalf, provided the required information is completed on the ballot itself. Residents of this apartment building have said that they are frequently offered voter registration and the opportunity to fill out a ballot and have it handed in. Critics, of course, argue the practice exposes voters to pressure or undue influence, and supporters say it helps increase participation among voters who may have difficulty returning the ballots themselves. Now, the New York Post visited several locations with large concentrations of registered voters earlier this week, and they spoke with nearly 20 people about the voting and voter registration. Many of them said that they knew they were registered to vote, but they could not recall who registered them or where they had recently voted or what happened to the ballots after registration. One of those people who got interviewed was Don Garza. He's a disabled veteran who's lived on Skid Row since 1999. Garza said voter registration is very common in Skid Row. Nonprofit organizations regularly collect voter registration drives throughout the area. We are tired of it, he said. We don't want people coming in and deciding elections and taking advantage of us. Every one of them thinks they have claim to our voice, and they think they speak for us. He also said that voter registration is offered when homeless residents apply for public benefits. Whenever you go and apply for Medi-Cal, GR, food stamps, you are asked if you want to register to vote. The guide from the DSA remains online. You can go read it yourself as the California ballot collection laws and election procedures continue to draw attention as a result of this most recent election. Steve Hilton, the Republican gubernatorial candidate, said this document was consistent with concerns that many others and he have raised about ballot collection and the political organizational machine in California. I think what you're seeing is years and years of the Democrat machine being built up for moments just like this. Now, Hilton has pointed to investigations involving taxpayer-funded organizations, and he said that some publicly funded groups engage in voter registration and political activity. It's a moment like this that comes to fruition through ballot harvesting. And he also referenced the immigrant rights groups, CHRLA, and other advocacy organizations. The unions, the activist groups, the nonprofits, this whole machine that's been built up within the nonprofit sector. This is when it comes into its own, when they harvest ballots for elections. It's the system they've built, and you're seeing it in action right now. The election fiasco has opened people's eyes to what's really going on in the election system. And so I think the attention on these things is why we can have a real hope that there will be change and that we'll get consensus for reform on the voting rules and cut out the fraud. Now, don't forget, federal prosecutors have recently said that there is active ongoing investigations into a variety of different election fraud schemes taking place in California, many of which I would assume just took place in this most recent election. Now, James O'Keefe, not to be outdone, was given some information about the location of ballots in a Los Angeles location inside a county library. This picture that he shows was taken last Friday. This was 3 days after the polls closed. And he said, we've just received this picture from within Stevenson Ranch Library in Santa Clarita, California. The photo allegedly shows multiple ballots inside of the library's own safe. This is where the library keeps things, including cash. The picture was taken last Friday, so we're hopeful these ballots made it to the right processing centers. If you have any tips about election fraud or in Los Angeles or California, you can email us. You can see here in the photograph, it's a pile of sealed ballots inside the safe. Now, we don't have any more information than this, so the question becomes, were these ballots not delivered because of whom the people were voting for? Did somebody have their ballot robbed from them because the person working at the library had decided not to pass them on? Okay, thank you. All right, now, here is Steve Hilton speaking about the situation in Los Angeles. And he was asked about the possibility of having Spencer Pratt come and campaign with him.
Stayed around, but I'm excited. It's a great night.
Steve, would you consider having Spencer Pratt go around the state and campaign with you or for you?
100%. He made such an incredible impact. It's an absolute travesty that Los Angeles as a city won't have the same choice that the whole state will have. He laid out incredible plans. Of course, everyone talks about his amazing campaign ads, and that's true. But they forget that he had incredibly strong substantive policies, especially on homelessness, which I said at the time, that's exactly what we need, not just in LA, but statewide. Yeah, 100%. I'd love that. He represents the kind of energy we need.
Steve, if your campaign for governor could be summed up in 2 words, what would they be?
Change is coming. That's 3.
So it sounds like if Spencer Pratt's election is not fixed, then he may have a position within the larger California state government administration. Now, here from that same Oval Office meeting from earlier today, President Trump comments once again on the stolen election in Los Angeles, and he addresses the idea of why Spencer Pratt had the election stolen, but Steve Hilton did not. Let me just get past this.
Power companies are demanding the removal of a video posted by a retired electrician. The reason? Thousands of viewers exposed to...
They voted in favor of...
Okay.
They voted in favor of men participating in women's sports. It's ridiculous. They voted for the transgender mutilization of your child. They voted for all these things. They voted for open borders. So bad. One of the worst things that's ever happened in this country. Hardest thing to cure. Because we had 25,000 people. Remember this, when countries, because countries sent those people out, when countries put people into a cartel, through the cartels, they put them into a whole group of 10, 15, 20,000 people that come in. They're not giving you their best people. They're giving you people that they don't want. And they're sending them into our, and the Democrats voted in favor of that. It's really a shame. And it's so bad for the country. You'd almost think they hate the country because they're not stupid people. You can't cheat like they did. And look at the election in California as an example. After a week, they determined that a kid who's leading and had all the mojo, all of a sudden he doesn't make the runoff. And then I hit them hard on that, but I started talking about Steve Hilton, who's a fantastic guy. And I saw them say it was going to be 2 weeks before they knew. And I started hitting them. It's going to happen to Steve Hilton, too. It's watch. You got to watch. And they approved Steve Hilton very quickly. They didn't want to. There was too much heat on him. The only reason he got approved, he had all the votes he needed, probably to be first place. But the only reason they approved Steve Hilton, it was going to be 2 weeks. They said it. And then they approved him that night because the heat was on them, because they're cheating dogs. And you can't have a great country when that happens. That's why.
So I can totally see this happening. You know, I mean, it's one thing to steal the election from a local race. It's one thing to steal an election at the state level. But to take two candidates who were both so obviously like just consumed with the energy and the ideas and the policy and had all of the grassroots support, especially considering the mess that California's in right now, to steal it from both of them, that would have been very, very obvious. But President Trump started putting the pressure on, and he's right. That very night, they said, oh, yeah, Steve Hilton definitely is going to move on to the runoff. And they just, acted like all of the other votes that they said were outstanding were not going to be enough to push anybody else above him. Now, we may not yet have the proof being presented in Los Angeles, but there is a case in Shasta County, which is north of Sacramento, where an election worker has been caught in a cheating scandal. I need to say thank you to Jep863, who says, Zach, please talk with JR Majewski. There is a ton of us that want a real America First vet in for the governor of Ohio, and Vivek is not an option. JR could get us back in shape. He was robbed when he ran. You are correct. JR was definitely robbed, and the Republican congressional group that was supposed to support him, they didn't. And JR could have been a great candidate, and I think he truly could have beat Marcy Kaptur. But unfortunately, Vivek is the candidate, and nobody else is going to be able to step in at this juncture and challenge Vivek. And frankly, JR doesn't want to be involved in politics anymore because of the experience that he had. And that is really unfortunate. That's something that happens quite often. The right people get involved for the right reasons, and the wrong people make their lives hell so that they won't go any farther. So as frustrating as it is, I don't think JR wants to do politics anymore, at least not at this time. But I will talk to him, and I'll see what his plans might be for the future. Principled Enigma says what Californica is doing needs to be nullified and controlled by either the federal government or preferably cooperative county sheriffs. At least a county sheriff swears to uphold the Constitution. Well, interestingly enough, after Sheriff Chad Bianco seized those ballots from Shasta County, and well, you know what? I'm sorry, it may not have been Shasta County. I can't remember off the top of my head. After Sheriff Chad Bianco seized those ballots, The state government of California passed a law right before this election to make it illegal for the sheriff to do just that. So sheriffs no longer have any control over local elections in the way that Chad may have when they were trying to do that investigation. Now, the other part of that is that President Trump, I saw this reported, but I couldn't find a clip from it, that CNN is reporting that the Trump administration is floating the idea of refusing to allow the Postal Service to deliver mail-in ballots, either to pick them up or to drop them off at the election sorting centers, which would mean that the mail-in ballot scheme would be much more difficult to carry on. Now, it's also being reported that they would allow the Postal Service to do this, but only in states that have agreed to hand over their voter rolls so that they can be cross-referenced against the program that the DHS has made to ensure that the people on the voter rolls are actual citizens who are alive and live at the addresses where they are registered. So the fight about mail-in ballots is certainly not over yet. Now, moving on from the election, but still speaking about fraud, HUD Secretary Scott Turner was speaking with a talking head on CNBC, and one of the efforts that Scott Turner has undertaken, and we've spoken about it before, is to get all of the illegals out of HUD housing. And this is part of the same effort to make sure that illegals are not receiving any sort of welfare benefits that the federal government provides. And this reporter on CNBC claims, and this is just ridiculous, that the cost of housing, higher housing costs, are not due to the fact that we had so many illegal aliens competing for housing against American citizens, but that illegal aliens have been kicked out of housing, and as such, prices are higher because apparently Americans can afford more, even though everybody knows that's retarded. The illegal aliens were getting far more benefits and grants, and they were essentially being given free money to get set up in houses.
No question that regulatory overreach has impacted the cost of housing coming in, but it's also been impacted by fewer immigrants being allowed into the country to work in some of these trades. It's been impacted by the tariffs that have created higher prices for lumber and so forth. How do you comment?
Well, yeah, I'm going to push back on that from the immigration standpoint. We have enough American people to take American jobs. You know, when you look at
we're in a pretty good labor market right now.
We have
talking about a relatively low unemployment rate.
We do. We have 4.3.
The biggest complaint from small businesses is that they can't find the labor.
About 4.3 unemployment rate, which is good. You know, the market is very sustainable right now, but we have enough American people to take American jobs. When you look at tens of millions of people coming across our border, unchecked, unvetted, from a HUD standpoint.
I'm not looking for unchecked immigration.
No, I know that.
Stretch.
But from a HUD standpoint, from a housing standpoint, it makes the cost go up for housing. Houses for American people are taken by those that are not here legally, and so it all comes together. We have enough American people for the American jobs, so I don't really buy that.
And as we've seen, H-1B visa holders who take those American jobs get paid a lot of money, come here, and then get special financing for homes. They buy homes, and then they will rent them out, which, of course, both of those things takes housing stock from Americans and also drives the cost up, as we saw in Texas, where the housing market went absolutely insane. Now, also in the state of California, it would appear that more than $617 million in taxpayer-funded cash welfare flowed into the homes of illegal immigrants in California just last year. That accounts for the lion's share of spending nationwide. This is from a new federal report that the administration just released by the Federal Health and Human Services Administration for Children and Families. And it was found that more than 85,000 houses nationwide received cash assistance through so-called child-only cases. Now, nearly 60,000 of those 85,000 households were all located in California. These are cases that involve welfare benefits that are only officially issued on behalf of children because the parents are officially ineligible for assistance because they are not here legally. These would be welfare benefits for anchor babies. Federal officials have blasted the arrangement as a loophole that funnels hard-earned taxpayer dollars into households that are headed by non-citizens. Although the benefit is formally paid on behalf of the child, it still supports a household that includes an immigrant status ineligible parent, the report said. Under the Federal Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program, most recipients face work requirements and a 60-month lifetime limit on benefits. Child-only cases, however, are exempt from those rules. The result is a striking disparity. Needy American families are held to the program's central work and time limit rules, but households headed by immigration status ineligible parents can receive cash-only, child-only cash assistance indefinitely. Now, the Golden State accounted for nearly 70% of all households receiving immigration-related child-only assistance, and about 81% of total spending nationwide, with taxpayers shelling out roughly $617.5 million. The spending represented only 16% of California's overall TANF basic assistance expenditures, as monthly benefits climbed to $875 during this fiscal year. You can take a look here at the other top 10 states. California is the next largest recipient, and they're only getting $47.5 million, as opposed to California's $617.5 million. Massachusetts next with $27.3 million. Washington with $12.2. Ohio with 8. Minnesota with 7. Illinois with 4.5. New Mexico 4.2. Texas 3.5. And Nebraska 3.2. No other state approached California's combination of scale, concentration, and fiscal impact. That state is the largest spending on record, and the next one, as I said, New York, is dwarfed by it. So New York only getting $47.5 million. That represents about 7,600 households. HHS has called for increased scrutiny of the child-only welfare cases and their impact on federal and state budgets. I think that they should be withdrawn and taken away from these people altogether. We also have a report from the Labor Department. It looks like they are in the process of clawing back more than $9 million in taxpayer funds from the state of New Jersey. That was meant, again, for COVID-19 pandemic unemployment benefits that instead were using to pay fraudsters. The scammers used Social Security numbers in other states that belong to multiple addresses and oftentimes prisoners, as we've seen on so many occasions. Also dead people and children, and in some cases they were bilking unemployment benefits using the Social Security numbers of dead people and children. Now, more than 53,000 unemployment insurance claims in New Jersey were found to be fraudulent as a result of this lack of oversight. The $9 million that was stolen is expected to soon be returned to federal U.S. coffers, according to the Labor Department, and it represents just a fraction of the nearly $1 billion in possible unemployment fraud that we saw nationwide. The Inspector General for Labor, Anthony D'Esposito, is the one spearheading this effort. He sent a memo out in January warning about unemployment insurance frauds that were likely being defrauded. Nearly 220,000 suspicious accounts were initially flagged as a result, and the Inspector General then deployed a strike team to New Jersey in April to determine exactly what was going on. D'Esposito said New Jersey's 53,000 fraudulent accounts illustrate Governor Mickey Sherrill's failure to safeguard funds and a complete disregard for the American taxpayer. Allowing these accounts to go unchecked is unacceptable. New Jersey's reckless approach demonstrates a profound betrayal of hardworking Americans, and my office will not rest until every account has been examined and every stolen dollar is recovered. Now, to be fair, Mickey Sherrill only took over in January, but it was former Governor Phil Murphy who served 2 terms prior to that, and he was the one who was in charge when the lion's share of this money was being stolen. Now, the IG's office demanded that banks freeze most of the suspected fraudulent benefits back in May, and the unemployment insurance accounts span through at least 12 states, which includes not only New Jersey, but New York, Illinois, and of course, California, and they were asked to be preserved until the end of the calendar year. During the pandemic, Criminals and bad actors exploited weaknesses to steal billions of dollars from the American taxpayer. Acting Labor Secretary Keith Sonderling had said in a prior statement. We are working with Vice President Vance and the Fraud Task Force to ensure that we use every tool at our disposal to track down stolen funds, hold fraudsters accountable, and return money to the taxpayers to ensure this program is used as intended. Now, we've also had a number of indictments that D'Esposito and Sonderling have spearheaded as a result of these investigations. I'm sure that we will hear more about them as time goes on. Now, let's talk a little bit about acting director of national intelligence, Bill Pulte. It turns out that he's going to be getting started a little bit sooner than had been expected, and I can only hope that that's because of the need to bring forth the information that we have that Tulsi Gabbard has been working on as Director of National Intelligence as it relates to our fraudulent election system here in the United States. Now, we learned last week that President Trump said that he wanted to reduce the size of the federal intel agencies, and he had said previously, just like they did on border funding, the radical left Democrats are trying to take our national security state hostage because of unrelated issues. They should stop playing politics with the safety of our great country. I have named William Pulte to be acting director of national intelligence. He will now take over on June 19th, and we have asked him to execute the immediate and needed downsizing of the office, reverting staff to their home agencies. At the same time, I am looking for a permanent ODNI nominee with experience in national security. He then goes on to say that FISA 702 is very important to our military in keeping the American people safe, especially during the World Cup and America 250 celebrations. If nothing is done, the important law will expire this week. I am asking Congress to send me a short-term extension of FISA to provide time for the selection and confirmation of a permanent head of the agency. I would like to thank Director Pulte for this time and commitment. Now, with Bill Pulte coming in as Director of National Intelligence, even on an acting basis, I don't think that FISA is going to be extended for anything. It seems like the Democrats and Republicans who are worried about Bill Pulte are dead set against allowing for any extension or retooling of FISA as long as Bill Pulte is in that office. Now, since he's coming in on the 19th rather than at the end of the month, that gives him and Tulsi Gabbard the time necessary to work together to get this report on election fraud out. And my God, I can only pray indictments are going to follow and be announced along with that. You've got several Republicans joining up with Democrats to suggest that they are going to block any extension of FISA if Bill Pulte is there as acting director of national intelligence. Now, they have tried to pass an amendment to stop him from being able to do so. They were unsuccessful. So Bill Pulte is coming, and I'm eagerly anticipating that perhaps FISA will not be a thing in the very near future. Because if that happens, then obviously I think Americans' rights are going to be preserved in a way they haven't been since 9/11. Now, we do have a report on who President Trump may be considering for for the permanent director of national intelligence. Now, Devin Nunes is not among this list. However, the list itself may be one of those fake stories that the administration puts out there. For the second time, we are hearing the name of potentially Representative Elise Stefanik. I do not want her to be Director of National Intelligence. He also has suggested Deputy Director of the CIA, Michael Ellis, and I don't want him either because he's from the freaking CIA. But Semaphore is reporting that Elise Stefanik, who almost served as Trump's ambassador to the United Nations before being pulled, arguing that her departure from Congress would jeopardize the Republican slim majority. So that's a point against her. That became a less urgent task on Tuesday after passage of the GOP's $70 billion immigration enforcement bill. Others inside and close to the administration have floated names like Michael Ellis. Now, this is important because it's not a name that's coming from President Trump. Also, House Intelligence Chair Representative Rick Crawford, the same thing would happen if he was to leave Congress. That slim majority that we'd have would be sliced down even more. Crawford has declined to comment on the speculation. He said, "I'm just doing my job." The White House referred Semaphore to President Trump's Truth Social post last Tuesday, where he said that Pulte was taking over as the acting director on June 19th. Another possible candidate inside the Trump administration is Cliff Sims. He serves as one of Vice President J.D. Vance's national security advisors. I don't know much about him. One person close to the White House even suggested, and I do like this one, Utah Representative Jason Chaffetz, who is currently a Fox News contributor. Now, Jason Chaffetz, considering President Trump's previous picks for a number of slots, he seems to have chosen from the stable of hosts on Fox News. Jason Chaffetz would make a lot of sense. Also, Jason Chaffetz was involved with the exposure of the grand conspiracy against President Trump, and also of Benghazi, and he was forced out of Congress because they threatened his family. So I could totally see Jason Chaffetz doing it, and I like him more than any of these other people here. But I really would love Devin Nunes. Now, I think it's entirely possible, as I said, that this article could be based on wild speculation and could have been just put out there as an effort to sort of sideline the time of reporters and also keep anybody who's really in the running off the radar. Devin Nunes would be my guy. He would be my pick if I could choose anybody. But Jason Chaffetz, I think that his previous experience with being threatened by the intelligence community, I think that would make him perfect as well. All right. Now, today, Act Blue CEO Regina Wallace-Jones testified before Congress. What's interesting is that it turns out she is now under federal investigation. This is being reported by Paul Sperry at Real Clear Politics and Real Clear Investigations. The information itself comes from records that were released from the IRS. It would appear that Miss Wallace-Jones has been getting paid double what the previous CEO of Act Blue was getting paid. She's bringing in about $800,000 a year, and she spent almost $3 million on security for herself, including a retinue of personal bodyguards, and she's also blown through nearly $5 million in travel budgets, which include checking herself into presidential suites and luxury hotels. This, I am certain, is something that Jim Jordan and the others on the committee would have loved to have asked her today. However, she pled the fifth. She pled the fifth to every single question that she was asked, up to and including when someone asked her how they should address her. Should they address her as Miss Wallace-Jones, Miss Jones? She couldn't even answer that. Now, during this time, Representative Andy Garcia was asking her questions, and he seems to believe that the Act Blue investigation has nothing to do with the illegal transfer of money into the campaign accounts of Democrats or the theft of the identities of many Americans or perhaps the undue influence of foreign actors or enemies of the United States of America. And Jim Jordan put him in his place. Take a listen.
Mr. Garcia in his opening statement said we're here because Republicans are playing politics. Let's be clear. We're here because Act Blue's legal counsel said Miss Wallace-Jones lied to Congress.
Ooh.
Willfully and knowingly misled the Congress of the United States. That's why we're here. Oh, by the way, who was the legal counsel, Covington Burling? Who was her counsel? Dana Remus, not some Republican. She was former White House counsel for Joe Biden. That's who said that. That's why we're here. So I just have a couple questions for you, Miss Wallace-Jones, just a couple. Your board chairman said Act Blue accepted up to 38 million contributions in 2024 that had the signs of foreign origin. How much fraud is too much fraud?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Now, it's worth mentioning that it's a huge deal when your own lawyer tells Congress that your client lied to Congress. And the only reason that they said that during their testimony is because Covington Burling withdrew from advising and representing Act Blue because they saw the illegal activity that was going on there, and that illegal activity was part of their testimony before Congress. So of course, Regina is not going to be able to answer any of these questions. And I can only hope that we're finally going to get indictments of people at Act Blue, because the behavior that they've engaged in is not only illegal, but of course it's dangerous to the United States of America. And frankly, it's unconscionable and not the type of thing that we can just allow to happen.
How many foreign contributions did Act Blue accept?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
How much money did Act Blue accept from Russia?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Why did your entire legal team quit? Your in-house legal team?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Did your legal team quit because of reduced fraud standards?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Understand. And we won't keep you here all day, but let me just do one more. Did you weaken your fraud standards to help Democrats?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the good work.
Okay, now you know what that gave vibes of?
Sir, is it true you were a crack cocaine dealer for 7 years?
I plead the fifth.
Sir, will you tell us about the cartels you dealt with in your time as a crack cocaine dealer?
No, but I can tell you that I plead the fifth.
Exactly how much money did you earn in your time as a crack cocaine dealer?
I said there are so many amendments in the Constitution of the United States of America. I can only choose one. I can only choose one. I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anything you say, fifth. Go ahead, ask me a question. Did you? Fifth. I have a secret document that I think you need to say.
That'll be all, sir. Good afternoon.
I got your sentence reduced to a month, buddy.
Yeah, that's the kind of vibe that she was giving off there, not answering any questions. Now, before we continue, I do have another very brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. If you guys haven't yet, I would sincerely appreciate it if you hit that like button, whether you're on YouTube or Rumble or Getter or X. If you could, hit that like button, hit the thumbs up, hit the heart, red pill, whatever it might be. All right. You guys might hear a lot about crypto, but one of the things a lot of people miss is that crypto was created so that you personally would be in control of your own money. Because after the 2008 financial crisis, it was obvious that banks could not be trusted. And Bitcoin was designed as a vehicle to be an alternative to banks. Instead of a bank holding onto your money and delaying transfers or limiting access, you stay in control. So if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, or you go into a bank and they say that you can't take that much money out, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Fast forward to today, and everybody's heard about crypto, but getting started might feel complicated, which is why I like Rumble Wallet, because it takes all the complexity out of it. It makes it very simple. You can choose what you want to deal with: Bitcoin, dollar-backed stablecoins, even digital gold backed by real gold. It's not complicated to set up. It connects directly with your Rumble account and then with MoonPay, so then you can use your credit card, debit card, or a bank account. You'll be up and running in minutes. And of course, once you get set up, you can even support your favorite content creators on Rumble, whether it's me or somebody else. So right now, if you haven't yet, you can use that QR code on screen, scan that with your phone, or just click the link in the description and then download the Rumble wallet. And from there, you get everything set up. You tap buy and you're in the game. And in just a few minutes, you can be hearing about crypto and then finally experiencing crypto, owning some. All right, thank you very much to Rumble, and thank you very much to everybody who supports the show. And I actually need to say thank you to somebody from Ko-Fi. Family Man gave a $17 donation on Ko-Fi yesterday and said, "Love the show, Red Pill." Thank you, Family Man. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you for the support. All right, now, I think that we've gone over the useless nature of John Thune on so many different occasions. John Thune is not going to support the America First agenda. Like many rhinos in the Senate, they're only there for one reason, and that is their own power, their own gratification, their own enrichment, and of course the enrichment of the people who put them in that position. This is why people like John Cornyn and Bill Cassidy and Tom Tillis are so pissed off. They're not going to be in the Senate any longer because they lose access to all of those benefits you get when you are a sitting senator in the U.S. Senate. Now, John Thune, as the majority leader, needs to be removed, okay? He will not do what is necessary to secure the America First agenda. And that is even more obvious with the comments that he made about the Save America Act. A reporter had asked John Thune if he's worried if President Trump will criticize his leadership because he's a big pussy and he's unable to make it happen with the Save America Act. And we have that clip right here. Take a listen. Let me just get past this commercial.
This pocket-sized pressure tool is so powerful, it strips a decade of grime off concrete in 30 seconds.
Fire the parliament.
Okay.
Fire the parliamentarian and pass the SAVE Act. You've been very clear as to why the SAVE Act doesn't have the votes to pass and why firing the parliamentarian would create problems here. But are you worried that if you don't do what the president wants, that he's going to criticize your leadership or perhaps withdraw support for your leadership?
That could happen. Look, and it's a well-known fact around here. Sometimes perhaps not fully grasped around the country, but anybody who follows this process closely knows that we don't have the votes. And the only way that you could figure out a way to get the votes, and even in that case, the Save America Act didn't even get 50 votes last week on the floor of the Senate. But even if you confine it to just the two issues of photo ID and citizenship in order to register to vote, on those two issues, it takes 60 votes in the Senate. The only way you could get there is to undo or get rid of the legislative filibuster, and there aren't even close to the votes here in the United States Senate in order to achieve that. So it's an issue we all agree on. We're all for it, and we've all voted that way, but it's not something that we're going to be able to get done absent having an election and electing some more Republicans.
Yeah, it could be done. It absolutely could be done. The Senate parliamentarian is a problem. John Thune has the power to replace her. Nowhere in the job description does it say that he's under any responsibility to allow the Senate parliamentarian to work there until she dies. He also has the power to put the vote forward with a proper filibuster, which would require members of the Senate to step up to the dais and debate why or why not they want to vote for it or not vote for it. And through that process, they could easily get to the point where they could get the votes. But John Thune isn't willing to put the time or the effort forth. He's also not willing to rally the votes among the people who are Republican and who don't want to vote for it. He's also not willing to put pressure on Democrats who would need to be part of that vote if they did the 60 votes. But they could just get rid of the filibuster altogether and get it passed with 51 votes. I believe J.D. Vance needs to be the leader of the Senate, and he has the power as the vice president to come in and remove John Thune and put himself in charge of the agenda. I've been hoping that something like that would happen, but for whatever reason, it isn't. Now, one of those Republicans who is actively standing in the way of President Trump and the agenda is Tom Tillis. And Tom Tillis sent an email to his colleagues in the Senate, and it was leaked yesterday. And it's quite a shocking revelation. We're just going to read through it. So this is unedited. This is the full email. Colleagues, I hope you all have had an opportunity to get some rest after another vote-a-rama. Of course, after they had like a 2-week off period. I'm sure most of you would prefer to move forward, but I believe we will look back at this experience as yet another reason why we will have historic headwinds against us in November. We missed an opportunity to remove a political albatross, the 1776 fund, from around the necks of our colleagues who are in cycle. Instead, we added weight to that albatross by having 41 members vote to protect the program. In addition, 41 members voted to protect the 1776 fund, the weaponization fund, which is the majority of Republicans in the U.S. Senate, which should show you something, Tom Tillis, about what the American people believe. The weaponization of the government, regardless of political party, is not something that should ever happen, because every time the government is weaponized against a person or a group, the government's always going to win, because they have the benefit of an unlimited amount of money, which they are taking from the exact same people that they are trying to destroy. In addition, we allowed 2 save votes that had no place in a vote-a-rama, which prompted a circular firing squad led by Tommy Tuberville and some of our Republican colleagues. I cannot understand why a supermajority of our conference voted against the side-by-side I offered. I went forward with offering the amendment at the request of members in cycle. The amendment simply ended the 1776 payout and appropriated $1.7 billion to the DOJ fraud initiative. Well, they're 2 different things. 2 different things, Tom Tillis. The fraud initiative is already funded. They're already out there and they're already doing good work. But what hasn't happened yet is the people who had the government weaponized against them being made whole. All of the money that they spent on lawyers and legal fees, all of the money that they lost, having their lives destroyed, their families abandon them, losing their jobs, being stripped of their ability to practice law or work in their given profession, none of that's been made up for. I knew most Democrats would not vote for my amendment because of the DOJ funding, but I thought it would be a good landing place for members to voice their concerns with the 1776 fund. How did I know Democrats would vote against it? I asked them. They simply would not support the DOJ fraud funding, which is precisely why I had that provision in the amendment. Look at this. He is admitting to intentionally trying to sabotage something that the American people overwhelmingly support. Tom Tillis is such a piece of shit. The chance of this amendment passing and threatening the privilege of the underlying bill was 0. If you voted against my amendment because you were afraid of it, that would strip the reconciliation bill of privilege. You were misinformed or a victim of groupthink. If you did for that reason, you should have voted against the SAVE Act for the same reason. Had either version of the SAVE Act been adopted, the underlying bill would have also been at risk of losing privilege. We took a major risk with the SAVE Act, and Democrats wanted to meddle. If I had been a Democratic leader, I would have been convinced a sufficient number of Democrats to vote for it, and immediately after it was adopted, I would have argued it was fatal to the privilege of the underlying bill. But the real problem I have is that the president and a few of our members forced us to take 2 more unsuccessful votes for the SAVE Act at the expense of our most vulnerable members in cycle. Susan Collins rightfully voted against it, representing her home state of Maine, which voted against it by nearly a 65-35 margin in a 2025 referendum. Rural state senators voted for it, but now they must explain why shutting down mail-in ballots, ending early voting, and complicating registration is a good thing for rural voters in big states. Tom Tillis obviously doesn't understand the fundamental arguments that the American people have about these things. Other members will need to account for their past positions in support of the state laws that would be repealed or preempted if the SAVE Act passes. Even worse, Tommy Tuberville and others initiated a circular firing squad calling out Susan Collins and other Republicans by name. Amazing. Members not in cycle attacking our most at-risk member because she supports the view of 65% of the voters in her state. Tommy Tuberville said it was beyond embarrassing that Republicans continue to block the Save America Act. Tom Tillis, Lisa Murkowski, Mitch McConnell, and Susan Collins, all of whom need to go, in my opinion, have not only betrayed their constituents, they are accomplices in Democrats' illegals first agenda. The people of North Carolina, Alaska, Kentucky, and Maine deserve better. I find this remarkable on several levels, but you would think a member of Tommy's comms team, who has a spouse working at the NRSC's leadership team, could see how this is only helpful to Susan's opponent. Do these people talk? Other members have referred to those who oppose nuking the filibuster and passing the SAVE Act as traitors and defectors on social media, because they are. Everyone knew the SAVE Act votes would fail, yet we went ahead anyway because the president requested them at the expense of our members. This simply prompted more attacks on our own, which I presume was the president's goal. 3 of our most vulnerable members were already forced to vote on the first Schumer amendment, focused on the 1776 fund and the motion to commit. Cassidy and I voted against it to give our members room to vote for it. It seems like Tom Tillis is only concerned with he and his friends' survival in the Senate, and that they only vote on something when they think it will be good for them. If something might not be good for them, they don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. That's how narcissistic and selfish these people are. But again, they are fundamentally misinformed about what the American people want. After that vote, I informed the most vulnerable in-cycle members that I would vote, however, a majority of them wanted me to. If it meant voting with them, or like the Schumer amendment, against them, I offered them my proxy for the night. I am not suggesting that you give members your proxy, but I am suggesting forcing votes that have no upside for in-cycle members and attacking them when the vote is not helpful to saving our majority. I get in Tuberville's case, it was likely to help boost him in the Alabama governor's race, but was it really worth calling Susan Collins an embarrassing accomplice who betrayed her constituents? Yes, it was. Based on last week's reconciliation experience, I hope we have learned a lesson that will not be replaced if we choose to move another reconciliation bill in this Congress. In my opinion, last week's vote was a net loss for in-cycle members. I am not diminishing the importance of funding DHS, but the gain from that will not offset the pain we've created in key races. The road to holding our majority is already difficult. We cannot afford any more unforced errors like this between now and November. Again, Tom Tillis has one thing that he cares about. It should be protecting America. It should be advancing America first. It should be advancing the president's agenda, which is the American people's agenda. But he seems to only care about holding on to the power that he has, which makes it even more wonderful that he is going to be leaving at the end of this term. Let me say thank you very much to Kitsko. Devin Nunes would be a great DNI, Intel committees, and understands technology, as he has all of the qualifications that would make it very difficult for anybody in Congress to argue against. Emerald Dragon says, hey, Zach, I'm just wondering if some of our friends would say a prayer for my Nona, grandmother, peace departure from this world this morning. She was 94 and lived a full and love-filled life. Emerald Dragon, I'm so sorry for your loss. Yes, everybody, if you wouldn't mind, please, just taking a moment of silence and offering prayers in your home for Emerald Dragon's grandmother. And I hope that she was able to leave this world surrounded by the people that she loved. And I'm sure that when she did, she left and entered into the warm embrace of our Lord. Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Emerald Dragon. And peace be with you and your family. And 94 years old, man. I can only say I'm sure that she had a wonderful, happy, and fulfilling life. Will to Push Forward says, it sounded like John Thune is blowing raspberries again when he speaks. He may be. Intolerant Leftist says, wait, if her constituents voted 65% against a SAVE Act, then how did calling Collins out by name harm her? Yeah, I know. His rationale for this stuff is twisted, and it goes to show you that these people think completely differently from the way that we do. Every time we look at the things they do and the decisions they make, and we're perplexed by them, you have to remember that every single decision is colored by the overriding thought that they only act when it's in their own best interest. Darla says, why doesn't JD kick Thune to the curb and settle this BS? That's my question. I don't know. Filter Dog says, President Trump reveals the United States has been taking millions of barrels of oil at night during the Iran blockade. I'm just announcing today for the first time we've been taking millions of barrels of oil every night. We took out oil. Yes, I saw him report that. I saw him say that from the Oval Office. And I don't know where that oil is going. I don't know where it's ending up, but undoubtedly it's for the benefit of the United States. All right, Lindsey Graham yesterday won his GOP primary against a Senate challenger. Lindsey Graham has successfully once again defended his seat against a surge of grassroots primary challengers. Graham was announced as the winner shortly after polls closed. His closest competitor was Greenville businessman and America First outsider Mark Lynch, along with a handful of other conservative challengers. So Graham ended the night with about 56.8% of the vote. Lynch got about 29% of the vote, and the rest of the votes were all split among the other four candidates. I'm kind of upset about that. You know, Lindsey Graham, I don't care for him either. He's now going to be facing off against a Democrat by the name of Annie Andrews in November. And, of course, Democrats would love to be able to flip that state blue. Don't know how likely it is, though. Also in South Carolina, Nancy Mace got smoked. She is not going to advance in her race for the governor of South Carolina. The lieutenant governor, Pamela Evette, was handed an 11th-hour Trump endorsement late last month, and that was likely what pushed her over the top. In her concession speech, Nancy Mace endorsed State Attorney General Alan Wilson in the runoff for Evette, which is interesting because she had previously attacked State Attorney General Alan Wilson for his failure to fully prosecute pedophiles and possessors of child pornography. So that goes to show you that Nancy Mace is once again just a fake television actor, just like so many other people in Congress. She said, "I voted to release the Epstein files and I lost some support for that. Apparently, I chose wrong if the goal was winning an election." And she continued that her loss was her choice to stand on principle against the Epstein cover-up. Let's go ahead and look at this brief clip from her concession speech.
This is the dirty little skincare secret of famous black women that made my husband stop looking at white women. Today, I am going to...
I was shocked to see Nancy Mace endorse the Attorney General because she came out hard against him, and he is definitely a controversial character. Not only has he not adequately prosecuted pedophiles and people who possess child pornography, his office has also gone after innocent people without adequate evidence and ruined the lives of people who never should have been prosecuted in the first place.
I voted to release the Epstein files and lost some support for that. As a survivor, I chose to stand on principle and stand against the Epstein cover-up.
She's also a fake survivor, allegedly, in my opinion. She claimed that her ex-boyfriend had drugged her. She insinuated he had drugged her and illegally filmed her as they were having sex. What really happened was that there were security cameras in the home that they shared, which undoubtedly she would have been aware of. And once she broke up with him, she tried to use the fact that they would both parade around naked, having sex in front of the cameras, as some kind of evidence that he had done something untoward and was some kind of an abuser. She's a piece of work. But look at that gold chain. That's a big gold chain.
I chose to stand against child rapists. I chose to expose the names hidden in the sexual harassment slush fund. I chose to expose DEI judges. And I chose to expose the abusers of children. And apparently, I chose wrong if the goal was winning an election. I want you to know that I'm going to endorse Alan Wilson for governor. A law and order governor, and that law and order governor is going to be Alan Wilson. And I not only think he's going to win tonight, I think he's going to mop the floor with Pamela Evette. And I very much look forward to that.
She's bitter. She's a bitter old crone who has flip-flopped in the exact opposite direction. Now, Pamela actually did go on to win. She got 29.3% of the vote, and she's going to be facing Alan Wilson in the runoff. Ralph Norman received 16.8. Nancy Mace only received 11.8. 8. She definitely wasn't as popular as she was in her own mind. Now, perhaps unsurprisingly, in Maine, Graham Plattner has won the Democrat primary. He's going to be facing off against Susan Collins in November. Graham Plattner is a communist who had a Nazi Waffen tattoo on his chest. He's also an avowed misogynist because when he was on Reddit, he was talking about how much he loved to sexually abuse his girlfriends. Of course, he also had a Kick account, which is notorious for adults chatting with underage girls and boys on that app for many years. He also cheated on his wife and had to recently admit that. Graham Plattner is a certified piece of shit, too. Do you guys remember the chemical spill in California? Not the one that was the implosion in Washington, but the actual chemical spill in California, which was at an aerospace plant. Well, it turns out that they have a history of things like this happening. This is the incident that forced 50,000 residents to flee lest they die from the chemicals that were being expelled. The FBI early this morning raided this factory in Orange County. This is the Orange County GKN Aerospace Facility. According to a report, dozens of FBI agents and federal vehicles arrived at the aerospace facility early this morning as authorities executed a search warrant and seized evidence related to the incident. Federal authorities served this warrant, and it was signed by a judge last week, approving the seizure of documents and records related to the storage, use, or disposal of methyl methacrylate. That's the chemical that was inside the tank. Samples of the substance inside the tank, a tote, a drum, a vat, a vessel, or container suspected of containing or having previously contained methyl methacrylate and any other hazardous substance were also sought. The warrant also was looking to seize information related to any cooling equipment or any equipment used to control or regulate the temperature. If you'll remember, the tank itself had to be within a certain temperature range, otherwise it was risked the explosion of the contents inside. The Orange County District Attorney's Office has also separately sent preservation orders to GKN. They are also conducting a separate criminal investigation, and they have reached out to the company's outside counsel to confirm the receipt of that preservation letter. So I look forward to seeing how this investigation goes. It would appear that they have had a history of incidents like this in the past. In early 2025, the company paid a nearly $1 million settlement with South Coast Air Quality Management District because they had some permit violations, missing emissions records, and nitrogen oxide issues. There was also other settlements and citations going all the way back to a 2020 inspection where repeated failures had been exposed, operating equipment without proper permits, modifying permitted equipment without approval, exceeding volatile organic compound limits in their emissions, and even using hexavalent chromium, which is a known carcinogen, and it's what Aaron Brockovich was able to use to win the lawsuit against PPG or PG&E many years ago in California. They've also paid out close to $1 million in prior penalties without ever being forced to admit guilt. So looks like they are running a strange and shoddy operation. It also looks like the senior vice president of the organization showed up at a Garden Grove City Council meeting on June 9th to apologize for the incident. Of course, that was yesterday, the night before they were raided. The company also donated $3 million to a local relief fund, which was to help residents with evacuation costs. There's already been many lawsuits that have been filed. And again, looking forward to seeing where this investigation goes. Separately, in a different area of California, Contra Costa County, the assessor's office was also raided this morning, and 3 search warrants were executed. It appears that the assessor's office is accused of mishandling property valuations for taxes across nearly 400,000 parcels. Corruption existing within this office means that there were improper assessments, there was favoritism, and there were a number of insider financial dealings, which included a $1 million payoff. Let's take a listen.
Federal raids in the East Bay today targeting elected officials. The search warrants were for the Contra Costa County Assessor's Office and 2 homes. NBC Bay Area's Valina Jones is live in Martinez. And Valina, what do we know about the investigation?
Well, the FBI is telling us this is all tied to an ongoing investigation, confirming that they executed those 3 search warrants at those 3 different locations that we know are connected to the county assessor's office as well as their top leadership. More than a dozen federal agents served search warrants around 7 Tuesday morning at the Contra Costa County Assessor's Office, as well as the homes and vehicles of outgoing County Assessor Gus Kramer and Assistant Assessor Vince Robb. Kramer, who denies any wrongdoing, says agents seized his phone and laptop.
It's the same powers that be trying to intimidate people who, in my opinion, probably know too much, and they're trying to silence them.
Kramer says he doesn't know what prompted the searches, but believes they could stem from conflicts he's had over his more than 30 years in office, including conflicts with disgruntled former employees and the Board of Supervisors after he sued them, claiming they violated the Brown Act. The search also temporarily shut down operations at the assessor's office.
We would have given them everything they were looking for. Instead, they're wasting taxpayers' dollars going through literally mountains of people's records and totally unnecessarily.
Rob.
Now, to his suggestion that he is the subject of retribution from local officials and potentially former employees, he had accused the city council of violating the Brown Act, which is an act from California that was put into place in 1953, and that guarantees the public's right to attend and participate in meetings of local legislative bodies, which is designed to promote transparency and accountability in local government. It basically stopped the holding of secret meetings, which could then be used to make decisions and take actions that would be detrimental to the people that these public officials were supposed to be representing. I don't know if he is the victim of some kind of retribution, but that would certainly be a big twist on this story if there is no $1 million payout or any corruption taking place in the office. But as he was there for 30 years, there's ample opportunity for corruption to have taken place.
Declined an on-camera interview, but says he's unaware of what investigators are seeking and maintains he has done nothing wrong. According to unofficial election results, Robb is expected to replace Kramer when he retires later this year.
I'm not going to be around in 6 months. I don't care. They can accuse me of, kicking the dog. It doesn't matter to me. The important part is Vince is elected. He's going to do a good job and serve the taxpayers well.
Kramer has faced controversy in the past. In 2019, a civil grand jury accused him of willful or corrupt misconduct related to allegations that he created a hostile work environment. That case ultimately ended in a mistrial. In a statement, Contra Costa County says, quote, while there are certain limitations on the board's authority because the assessor is an elected official, the board is focused on ensuring the integrity of the assessment process and will explore all available options for its continued operation. Kramer says taxpayers should not be concerned.
I want them to be assured that everything will be okay, it will not affect them. And I've been accused of some pretty heinous things over the years, but I've always been exonerated. So I can rest assured that will be the case this time.
Now, the one thing that I will say is that the fact that he's talking to the press and he seems relatively assured that he's done nothing wrong, that's generally not what happens when politicians are accused of malfeasance. And they know that putting themselves on the record to a reporter is likely something that could be used against them in the future if they are to be charged or indicted or put on trial in any way. Considering the fact that this is California, it could go either way. Anybody could be corrupt.
Now, all 3 search warrants and that FBI raid did not conclude in any arrests so far. We know that Kramer will end his term at the end of the year. A new county assessor will take over in January. Reporting live in Martinez.
All right. Now, we also have a report concerning Bill Gates' testimony early this morning to the House Oversight Committee regarding his dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. As he was on his way into the hearing, he made this brief statement.
I'm glad to be here voluntarily to testify to help with the committee's work. I'll start with an opening statement in the hearing room. I hope my testimony is helpful to the important work of the committee to find justice for the victims. Thank you.
Do you regret your friendship with Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm sure he regrets his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. Hopefully tomorrow we will have actual video from his testimony. At the very least, we'll have a transcript to go over. Now, we also have an announcement of a massive bust taking place in Boston, Massachusetts. More than 20 members of a gang called the Trinitarios, which included seven illegal aliens. This group is responsible for a number of cold-blooded murders and a number of even more attempted murders in the Boston area. Once again, a Democrat stronghold.
More than 20 suspected gang members indicted on federal RICO charges, part of the Justice Department's 2-year investigation into the Trinitarios' alleged crimes across the state. Federal prosecutors in Boston announcing charges against 26 gang members today, involving 5 murders and 19 attempted murders over the past decade in Essex County. Over the past 2 years, 56 members have been charged in 11 murders and 30 attempted murders dating back to 2017.
The defendants charged today are alleged to be members of Lawrence, Haverhill, and Boston chapters of the Trinitarios and part of a large violent drug and firearm trafficking enterprise that spanned across state lines from Massachusetts to Maine and New Hampshire. Today's charges allege that the leader of the Lawrence chapter and other senior members of the Trinitarios are responsible for 5 homicides and 19 attempted murders.
Prosecutors say the Dominican gang is organized in its recruitment efforts, targeting legal and illegal immigrants from the Dominican.
All right. Now, I do have here a brief segment from Bill Gates' opening statement to the committee. He said, "It was after this that I learned Epstein had become aware of sensitive information about my personal life, including the fact that I had been unfaithful in my marriage." He doesn't mention that Bill Gates set up those infidelities. These affairs had nothing to do with my interactions with Epstein, but they are painful for my family. As the public can now see, based on what is being released in the files, Epstein was working to use information about my infidelities, in addition to many lies that he layered on top, to pressure me to re-engage with him. He was unsuccessful in this effort, but it shows some of the ways he tried to leverage his interactions with me further. Now, apparently, Bill Gates said that Jeffrey Epstein was rather fond of writing fake emails.
Andrew, well, Bill Gates has spent the better part of 4 hours in the hearing room behind me speaking with the House Oversight Committee about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. On his way in this morning, he refused to answer any questions from us. Mr. Gates, why did you meet with Jeffrey Epstein after his conviction? What did you guys talk about? Now, in his prepared opening statement to the committee, Gates says, quote, "I never witnessed nor had any indication that Epstein was engaged in ongoing critical conduct. I have learned a significant lesson and am now far more careful about who I engage with, even in a limited capacity." Gates claims he met with Epstein 5 times across 2011 and 2012 to raise money for global health, but stopped engaging when it became clear that Epstein would not deliver money for his charity. Democrats say Gates has told him today about other people in Epstein's orbit, which they say they want to continue discussing in this session.
Mr. Gates was aware that Jeffrey Epstein had been convicted and for a horrific crime and continued to interact with him to seek money for his foundation. And I think that obviously I think we would agree was a horrific judgment call.
Committee Chairman James Comer says he's going to ask Attorney Alan Dershowitz to appear for questioning and also Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche if there are any other Epstein documents.
This is about
trying to figure out how the government failed, and this goes back several administrations, several attorneys general. This has definitely been a failure in justice.
Now, Democrats say that Gates says he was never introduced to any underage girls and that Epstein had a habit of writing emails that were untrue.
Wah, 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 wah. All right, you guys. I've got dinner on the stove, so I need to bounce, but let me say thank you very much to everybody for hanging out with us today. Of course, we will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. We'll be talking even more about Bill Gates' testimony. Of course, we're going to be talking about fraudsters getting arrested and, of course, anything else that breaks over the course of the next 24 hours. Now, President Trump has said that they're planning to hit Iran hard once again as a result of that Apache being shot out of the sky by an Iranian drone. Who knows if that's going to happen, but, of course, everybody should stay on their toes. And, of course, I would also stay away from urban areas in general. All right, you guys, please do me a favor, hit that like button. We have just over 2,800 people still here over on Rumble. If you wouldn't mind, you could also share the program. That would be a big help. And hopefully you'll join me tomorrow at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Until that time, good luck and God bless. Bye-bye.